T V V T Q V V T T T T V V T Q V Virtual tips and tricks videos. Virtual tips and tricks videos. Featuring Kira Riehm. Featuring Bennett. Featuring Chyr. Featuring Anurima Baidya.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion. My name is Kira Riehm, and I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in the Department of Mental Health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm also working as a senior resource TA this year. And so we're hosting this panel discussion to hear about student experiences with online learning. And so I'm here with Hannah, Linda, and Anurima today. And so I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. Hannah, would you like to go first?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Hannah Bennett. I'm a full-time MPH student, and I'm currently based in Detroit, Michigan. I will be moving to Baltimore soon, which I'm very excited about. And I'm really focusing my studies on health communications.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. Welcome. And up next, Linda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Linda Chyr. I'm a third-year PhD candidate in the Department of Health Policy Management at this Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm originally from Toronto and look forward to this panel discussion.
Great. Thank you. And finally, Anurima, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Anurima Baidya, and I'm originally from India, and I was based out of India for all these months. I just moved to Baltimore like last week, and I am in the full-time MPH program at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and I'm concentrating in infectious diseases. Looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Welcome to Baltimore. That's very exciting. Cool. I guess we'll just launch into the prompts then. And so I think the first one we'll probably have a lot of thoughts for. I'm curious about hearing what aspect of the virtual learning experience has been the most challenging for you. So if you want to try to highlight like one experience that's been most difficult for you, yeah, I'd be curious to hear about it. Hannah, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can start. I think the most difficult part of the online experience has been probably just the lack of that in-person connection. The interactivity of being in a class, in the classroom setting, the kind of loss of immediacy and the connection to the professors. But I think personally with my learning style, I've found it most difficult to, like all of us, to sit on Zoom for a lot of hours every day. But just having everything be in like big recorded chunks as opposed to more interactive, being able to ask questions in class, that's been pretty challenging.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I agree that Zoom fatigue is definitely very real. Yeah, Linda, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the aspect of virtual learning that has also been most challenging for me is the Zoom fatigue and the ability to engage online for a prolonged period of time over a screen. But I think many faculty has recognized that and has been strategic in really adjusting the amount of time of didactic lecturing over Zoom. And rather using pre-recorded lectures that students can listen to, which has been really helpful for us, and then using the actual Zoom sessions for discussion and engagement with peers and faculty. So I do really appreciate that.
Nice. Yeah, those are great tips. And finally, Anurima, I'm curious to hear about your experience, particularly since you've been in such a far off time zone for a lot of your time learning at Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that was one of the most challenging things for me because I had to alter my entire body clock according to the EST time. So my classes would start technically at 7 p.m. in the evenings and run through till like 1, 2 o'clock in the mornings. And if I wanted to attend any seminars and all, that would run till like early mornings, which was like really inconvenient. And also there was another thing which which was the issue of like sudden power outages, which was very common in the state where I was in, and you have no control over that, right? So you have your Wi-Fi and it goes, and your cellular network is not that great, and it feels like you're stuck in a limbo for those 5 to 6 hours. And well, I would be lying if I don't say that I had my fair share of panic attacks when there was an assignment due or an exam which had like only one time slot. So yeah, I think those two aspects were the most challenging experience for me so far in the virtual learning environment.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds very difficult. Yeah, and so I guess now that we've talked about different challenges that we faced as online students, I'm curious to hear what teaching techniques you've seen used in virtual classrooms that you appreciated and that you wish more faculty used. Hannah, can you go first?
Yeah, so this is an example that I've said it a few times before in the virtual teaching committee. But one of my favorite techniques that I've seen a professor use is in the health communications team has done a really great job with this. Is offering uh, like podcast format interviews so that interviews and lectures and sorry so that we can listen and not always have to be staring at a screen in order to take in the lectures, and I think that's just a really creative approach to this different very unique kind of learning environment and really takes into consideration the experience of the students, which I think is very important in designing new teaching techniques, is just kind of imagining what we're going through on the other side, and adapting the class format to better fit our lives during the pandemic.
That's great. That's actually a really interesting idea. I hadn't heard of the podcast format, but it makes a lot of sense because you can listen to like a podcast anywhere. Yeah, great. Um, cool. Linda, do you have any other teaching techniques that you wish more faculty used?
Yeah, one of the techniques that I really appreciated and I think really helped me was on the Zoom platform where a lot of faculty were able to use the function of the breakout rooms. And I think that really simulated kind of being in a classroom with, 50 peers, but then being able to kind of form groups where we were then able to have more engaging discussions, particularly if there were group projects, and using that time to facilitate meeting in groups, but then also having the faculty and TAs be able to rotate through these rooms and answer questions among a smaller group of students. So, yeah.
Yeah, the breakout rooms in Zoom are really key and very helpful in sort of like facilitating smaller group discussions. Yeah, that's definitely a technique that I've heard a lot about. And yeah, finally, Anurima, anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I think my personal favorite would be the happy hours, which was there in the Biostats 620 series, where like so it would be definitely in a convenient time zone for everyone to attend, and it would be just talking with the faculty and getting your questions resolved, and it was just an open platform to go and get your questions answered. And I also want to echo what Linda just mentioned. Like I'm a real big fan of the breakout rooms in Zoom because that way you could interact with your small group people and like classmates and get to know them better also and have a very robust group discussion. So those two techniques for me are the best so far.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit more about the happy hour concept? Is it kind of focused on the class material, or is it more
Yeah.
like interacting with other people? Like what was the content of those sessions, I guess?
So I think the concept was just the class materials only, but then it would be just a recapitulation of whatever was taught in a very abridged version, and where you can just stop like the professors and whenever you are having a query, or you can come up with your questions, which you would run into, of course, when you're doing the materials by yourself, and then just be. It was just a very open and welcoming platform to get your questions answered. So this was done by Professor Marie and Professor Bandin Roche in our Biostat 620 series. So I really loved attending those sessions.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like a little more informal, but like still focused on the class material. That's awesome. Cool. I think this feeds like nicely into our next prompt. So I'm curious if there's been any positive aspects of the virtual learning experience for any of you. It's totally fine if the answer is no. I think from my perspective as a teaching assistant, like unexpectedly positive aspect for me has been that I can take like a little bit more time to respond to emails. And I'm quite introverted, and I find that I do better when I have time to read an email and sit back and think about it and then respond, as opposed to having to answer questions like on the spot in class. Like those in-person interactions are great, but sometimes a lot for a TA if you're having a big class. So that's just been like one unexpected positive aspect for me. And I'm curious if there's been anything for you as students. So Hannah, has there been anything that you've experienced that's been really positive?
Yeah, I would say the most positive aspects that's going to be a hard transition if we have anything in person again is just being able to rewind recorded lectures, just material that's very dense. I really benefit from being able to go back. I'm also quite ADD, and so just if I lose track of something, like it's really nice to be able to go back to the transcript as well. Take some pressure off of note taking, and really makes test taking like just easier, like more accessible. So I've appreciated that, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to have like access to the lectures, so yeah, just so you can listen over and over again and like really let those concepts sink in. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Linda?
Yeah, so a positive aspect of virtual learning for me has been the flexibility in not having to commute to Hopkins. But that aside, I think what I've seen is just faculty being able to creatively engage on the various platforms we have, and kind of, I think the creativity that I've seen in assignments and allowing us, whether it was group projects or even individual assignments, that there was a kind of flexibility and kind of format. And I think that's really come through, and kind of aspects of learning that can be different for students, and being able to kind of allow us kind of more of a free form style in some of the classes that I've been in.
Yeah, flexibility is certainly key. I think both in the like assignment format as well as like when you complete the assignment. Yeah, I have found myself with a lot more time because I'm also not commuting. And that's been like unexpectedly really nice. Yeah, so Anurima, any final positive aspects that you found?
Yeah, so I think I would like to echo what Hannah had mentioned. For me, I think just being able to access the recorded lectures, and when you forget something, then to forget something, you can just go back and see that portion. And also, for me, to be honest, I'm not, so English is not my primary language. So, just getting the transcript and on the side for the lectures, because, there are portions where I could get what the professor was saying, but that was like a really big advantage for me. So that worked really well. And also, I would like to mention that the accessibility to the live recorded lectures, that was also a plus for me because I could revise it whenever I wanted to, even though I was not able to attend the live sessions if they were in an inconvenient time zone. So yeah, I think those two aspects. Yeah.
That's great. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Great. And so I guess we're already at our final prompt. This has gone kind of quickly, but I suppose that's good. So the final prompt, I think, sort of brings together aspects of the last three prompts. I'm curious, so there will obviously be some professors who are teaching for the first time in the new year, in third term and fourth term. And I'm curious if you have any words of advice that you would want to share with these faculty who are teaching virtually for the first time. Just any thoughts that you might have. I know one thing that I think that I would want to share with faculty is that we know that they're also busy and that they're also doing their best. I think sometimes faculty put a lot of pressure on themselves to like have the perfect teaching experience and always be at their best. But I think it's important for them to know that we realize that that's not always a reality, and we're willing to meet them halfway. And yeah, we appreciate that they're always doing their best for us. Yeah, Hannah, do you have any words of advice that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice is that variety is really key. I mean, we're all on our computers all day, every day, and I think just having a variety of different formats that the materials is delivered in order to accommodate different uh, learning styles, and then also just the accessibility, like Anurima was mentioning about having difficulty with connection. I know that's been the case for a lot of people, and so I mean, I mentioned the example about having audio only components is easier on people with who struggle with an internet connection, and yeah, I think just variety in general helps keep things a little bit more exciting. Designing opportunities to be designing assignments to be a little bit more interactive with the other members of the class in order to kind of facilitate that community is important. And then I think just streamlining things in terms of like online documents as much as possible, making everything very, very clear. So having like due dates really clearly outlined, and just kind of trying to think about how many things that we like constantly have open on our computers. I think having like processes and syllabi and everything very streamlined and as accessible as possible is important to all students.
Great. That's good advice. So variety in the types of assignments and opportunities that are offered, and then just like making expectations really clear to students up front, and having it organized. Great. Linda, anything to add?
Yeah, and just building off of that, I think establishing clear communication, expectations early, upfront, and throughout the quarter is really important. I think, for instance, when we have discussion forums, which are so helpful, but I think it would be helpful for faculty in the beginning of course to communicate, when students and faculty may be responding to discussion forums or posts. If an email is sent by a student on a Friday evening, and given kind of all the personal and professional responsibilities that we may all have, kind of when a response might be expected. I think one faculty had these weekly emails in the beginning of the week where the faculty highlighted course content and deadline for the week, and that was really helpful for me as a student to say these are the assignments that are due for this week. These are the contents that are going to be covered, and that really helped me keep track throughout the term and not fall behind, especially when there were major deadlines and midterms. So I found that just kind of clear communication was really key in the virtual learning environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is always great. It seems it's especially important in the virtual environment. Yeah, and finally, Anurima, anything to add on advice for faculty who are teaching virtually for the first time?
Yeah, so it's not so much as an advice, more so like something which I have observed in my course during the the virtual learning experience. So I know that for a fact that many of my colleagues, my international peers, will not be able to travel. So it would be really helpful if we could have alternate timings for exams, like not just have one particular time slot for the midterms or finals, but instead have like different time slots which could span across different time zones, because that would give more flexibility for students to give the exams at a time which is convenient for them, and unlike like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and sitting for an exam, which is not, I think, healthy. So yeah, that is one. And secondly, I think I echo with what Linda just mentioned about having this one mail at the beginning of the week, just summarizing the deadlines and assignments you have for this week. Because as a student, I found that really helpful, and it would help me be in track with the academics. So yeah, thank you. That's all from me.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and so before we finish off this panel, I wanted to ask if any of you have any lingering thoughts or any like lingering things you want to share with anyone watching this video. Yeah, I'll just leave the floor open. Do any of you have anything you wanted to add? Hannah, Linda, Anurima.
Yeah, I can make one comment. I think adapting
Sure.
to virtual learning and teaching takes time and is an ongoing process. And I think for one of the courses, I think it was week 5 into the course, a lot of students started expressing that there wasn't enough face-to-face interaction with faculty and TAs. And the faculty, this was week 5, they were implementing drop-in office hours at week 5, and that was still really helpful for the rest of the course. So I think just recognizing that changes and enhancement to courses can be done throughout the term, even if that doesn't get implemented week 1, that there's kind of ongoing changes and adaptations that can happen, and that can still enhance kind of the latter half of the course if that's the case. So I found that, and just a kind of faculty's responsiveness and being able to kind of change and adapt to students' needs was much appreciated and really made the learning process so much better.
Great. So like adaptability is like a key component, I guess. Like checking in with students, seeing how they're doing, seeing what's working and not working. Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Yeah, Hannah, did you want to go ahead?
I was going to say a very similar
great.
thing. I think to even just plan for that to happen. Like I think that teachers that had a check-in that was scheduled or a survey already within the first couple weeks of the class that just really acknowledged the fact that this is a collaborative experience that we're in, and just being open to change was really important and really helped students, I think, feel heard and feel like their thoughts and concerns about the class format were valid, and that we have the space to make changes in our education, and that just made me feel really good, the classes that have done that. And then I think just the accessibility to the faculty really helped to help those lines of communication open. So I would say to just plan for that.
Great, cool. That's awesome advice. Thank you. Anurima, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I think I'm just going to bounce off on what Hannah has said and just mention that, okay, so for an amateur like me who has been taking baby steps in the field of networking in the summer, for me, so this virtual learning experience has been a boon so far, because it was sort of like a blessing in disguise, because I have been able to network, get like numerous opportunities for networking through my concentration directors, my advisors, and my alumni mentors, and also my classmates. So yeah, for me, so I think that is one of the a great positive aspect of being in this virtual platform for me, because I could open up and just be free and talk to people via mails or just have Zoom meetings and all of that. So yeah.
That's great. I'm glad it's been good for networking. Yeah, that's good to hear. So yeah, I think with that, we'll probably wrap up this panel discussion. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. It was great to hear your perspectives and your thoughts, and I'm hopeful that that your words of advice will go a long way in helping support faculty who are teaching 3rd and 4th term. Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks.